Welcome everyone. My name is Līga Ozoliņa and you are listening Media and Society podcast. These episodes are a platform for in-depth conversation about ways people experience, think and feel about media. Aimed for professionals and media scholars, the podcast explores the diverse relationship between media, journalism and audiences in two Baltic states, Latvia and Estonia. Episode 2. What it's like to be a journalist in Latvia and Estonia. In our previous episode, we tried to get a glimpse of what it's like to be a journalist in either Latvia or Estonia from professionals' points of view. Therefore, we talked with international journalist couple Inga Sprindja and Holger Ronema, who have roots in either Latvia or Estonia. Today, we would like to continue this conversation from more academic perspective with two journalism scholars from Latvia and Estonia. Therefore, I'm happy to introduce you to both of my today's guests. Anda Rožukalne, Rīga Stradiņš University professor, and this year also a visiting researcher at the Grady College at Mass Communication and Journalism of the University of Georgia. And Ragne Kõuts-Klemm, associate professor in sociology of journalism at University of Tartu. Welcome. Pleasure to have you on this podcast.
Hello.
A topic we discussed a lot in previous episode with Inga and Holger when they were mentioning so-called startup vibe in journalism, that they sense that journalists and media organizations are trying to find new ways how to reach audiences and how to engage them. Do you see from your individual experience that such movement is going on, or is it still somewhere cooking and we will see something new in a couple of years maybe?
It seems to me that maybe the biggest media outlets are experimenting currently less, but we can see some smaller media organizations. For example, we have in Estonia one editorial team who tries to make a slow journalism, to write long stories and where we can see less conflicts and less daily politics and this kind of things. That would be interesting and calm to read. And then we have another donated media organization. They are calling themselves Media Lab, and they are experimenting with different formats. They are making long investigative stories. They make stories about the topics bigger media outlets cannot imagine that it would be relevant to do. For example, they have had some Southeast regional stories about daily problems of people in these regions and so on. And really they are inviting sometimes some popular writers who are really able to express literally well their thoughts and write like a book or really some long format about events in Estonia, like a documentary as a book. But yes, they are experimenting, but their readership or number of followers, it's still pretty low. And we are really observing what kind of business model they will develop, because it's clear that without money, you cannot make this kind of things. And as I said, first of them, Edasi, they have advertising income as well, but another media organization gets mainly donations by sponsors, and it seems that it is not a successful model yet. But yes, we see that there are some experiments to provide audience something new in different format and different content as well.
I would agree, but then I would say that we should differentiate this individual level, when journalist again should learn something new and try perform his or her professional duties in different platforms. And at that level, I wouldn't say that there are a lot of experiments, but still there are a lot of successful experiments. And those experiments shouldn't be always successful, but bigger online media and public service media keep experimenting and trying to find new formats. I really appreciate what Delfi and TVNet group media are trying to develop their video and audio content, and especially how they invest in a building relationship with the audience. They really set up big projects related with how to explain their activities as a media organizations, as a journalists, to identify their responsibility and to make more connection with the audience. I think this is a good way how to combine several activities related with those challenges. But yes, I would say that those small projects are relatively small, because I think that Rebaltica is not small anymore. It's already big for several years. If we analyze their international connections and big global level publications, and of course extensive investment in local national level investigative projects, those experiments show how larger media organizations could develop their experiments. And probably in future, I see that larger changes will come from bigger media organizations. Now they, of course, experimenting, but if we are speaking about the proportion of journalistic content and its impact, then yeah, I would say that this is combination. It's how Rebaltica works. We can see that they complete their projects and that they publish in many other media, actually breaking that old competition paradigm. They are cooperating with competitors. And I think this is one of really good example how probably public service media could develop their experiments towards more availability of journalistic content.
Yeah, you mentioned the Rebaltica, and we know that this theater play they created, and it was the way how you can prolong or extend the life cycle of journalism, and also explain to specific audiences the role of journalism or investigative journalism. And I know that also in Estonia there has been a theater play based on research done by Delphi research team. So maybe it is a question about the ways how we can extend this life cycle of journalism, that it is not only a one piece, but that we can actually find ways how to put it in different packages and provide it to different smaller audiences, maybe.
Yes, maybe we can talk about different kind of content journalism is providing. For example, we know based on statistics that some stories, for example, political and related actual issues in the society, this kind of stories live short. They are not interesting to, I don't know, listen or read much later they have been published. But there are some content types that are really interesting. For example, when we think about Estonian public radio has several series about, for example, how to explain history, how to explain something in society generally, not on the daily basis. And I was lately able to see statistics that when we compare the numbers of people who listen to the story at the same time it is published, it is so tiny number, but afterwards there are millions of people or millions of contacts, and people really take time to listen to the story later and to educate themselves. And it is really different content, not really daily political issues, but more general. And yes, public radio editor of this radio told that they are really surprised that people are so interested in this kind of content, and the numbers are surprising for them. And I think it is the question how we can balance in journalism daily issues and news produced about daily events and this kind of more timeless topics. And I see that journalists need to have both, and they need to find some balance. And then readers and listeners get what they want, because audience's needs are really diverse when we talk about journalistic content. So I'm pretty optimistic that thanks to all this kind of audience metrics, journalism is able to see how to provide their content so that audience will be engaged.
Thank you for bringing us to this point, because I really want to ask whether journalists in either Estonia or Latvia, do they know really their audience, and do they understand their audiences and their needs, all those things you already mentioned. So based on what you see as an offer in media in Estonia or in Latvia, do you think the journalists really understand the needs? And do you see this balance already now?
At this moment, I have twofold answer, which is simple and complicated as well. How to create this high quality content which differentiate journalistic performance from other myriads of information providers, that this is fact-based reporting, fact-based analysis, attempts to minimize biases, because we all are biased, journalists are biased, their sources are biased, people like representing various groups are biased, and that new, very essential, which actually it's not new, probably it should be more prioritized task of journalists to balance those biases, to show those biases and put together fact-based stories which are dealing with the various actual and old biases in the information environment.
Yes, this fact-based reporting is really important, and it can be seen as a basis for the future journalism as well, because we see that we have a lot of information. We can actually get a lot of information as citizens, but to show the relations between different pieces of information, how facts are related to each other, it's demanding. It demands a lot of work, and sometimes even access to some kind of information we as citizens are not able to find or get. Journalists probably have tools and skills how to get this kind of information as well. So journalists can access, thanks to his or her profession, more information than we, but they need to be able to provide relations between facts. And we as citizens probably do not have enough time even to think about relations between facts. So it is a really unique role of journalism, and I'm pretty sure that in the future we will have it as well.
Yeah, very interesting thoughts, but I would like to open up another theme for discussion in this episode. When we talk about Latvia and Estonia, of course, we can't escape the topic of Russian-speaking audiences and Russian-speaking journalists. So how would you describe the situation with Russian-speaking journalists in Estonia or in Latvia at the moment? We know that there is this war in Ukraine, and many things have changed during the past couple of years because of that, and the information sphere has changed a lot. So how would you describe these aspects in your countries?
Maybe I can start. I have been visiting at the end of September Riga, one organization. It is European Center for Minority Issues, organized discussions about minority journalism in different European countries. And I have an impression that the situation in Estonia and in Latvia is really different. Even both countries currently are standing on opposite ends in this topic. In Estonia, for example, Estonian government and decision makers see the need to support Russian language journalism in Estonia. There are some money for Estonian media organizations to provide quality content in Russian language. And of course, you know that Estonian public service media has Russian language TV channel. So it is a choice to provide quality information, quality journalism in Russian language in Estonia. And it seems to me that Russian language journalism is in Estonia currently pretty strong and have got this kind of empowerment by public means. And they are really working to provide this kind of content to inform Russian language citizens in Estonia. And in this sense, it is pretty surprising that Russian language is not discriminated or avoided in public discussion space. So it's one end of the scale. And as far as I experienced in Riga, journalists from public service, radio and television told actually that it is really complicated to be Russian language journalist and to make Russian language journalists in Latvia, because it is not favored or supported, and maybe the need for that is not so clear. So it made me think that what kind of strategy could be better or suitable for this complicated situation we have currently in Europe when we have war. Yes, it is my impression, but I think that Anda has maybe some more angles to open in this complicated topic.
Yeah, this is like new Pandora box. I have to be very brief. The problem nowadays in Latvia is based on political decisions, where this political imagination to cut out, to delete Russian media content from public space will lead to more Latvian language usage. In this situation, we can see at least one actual trend, but we should look a bit historically. Actual trend is that Russian journalism is diminishing in Latvia. Even we have a huge group. We never had in Latvia so many Russian speaking journalists, but this other organization, Media Hub, which probably you met as well in Riga, they managed to help settling in Latvia for more than 500 journalists from Russia and Belarus. But still, even though Russian-speaking journalism is diminishing, there are a very small group of high-quality journalists. When you speak with them, they admit that they are not motivated to invest in their quality, especially in public service media, and those journalists are mostly in public service media and in big online media like Delphi and TVNet, because they feel this high level of uncertainty about their future.
Historically, of course, both audiences have been different in Estonia and in Latvia. So Russian language audience has been really different and expecting something else from journalism. Estonians or Latvians are expecting, but we still see, for example, that there is some difference still. When we think about these digital subscriptions, then media houses tell that it's almost impossible to sell subscription, that the Russian language audience are not ready to pay for quality content. So it is, at least in Estonia, the case, and Russian language content is for free in Estonia. And of course, when we have state support to media organizations, then it's logical that it is the case. But in the future, when this state support will end, and definitely it will end, then the question is, do the media houses still have the contact with the Russian language audience, and do they still have resources to produce content in Russian language? I am not sure what will be the situation after the funds will end. So it is still the topic we will have in next years to discuss. And I'm really interested in the outcome of this two-country solution, because it seems to me that we can have good solution when we use a Latvian example, and we can have good solutions when we use Estonian example. So, but we will not know. Let's see. It's a really interesting question.
Even though the aim of this podcast is not to measure who is better or who makes better decisions, When we look at statistics or research data, we see that in many aspects, Estonian media landscape looks better than the media landscape in Latvia. For example, even though we see that sentiments of media skepticism are popular in both Latvia and Estonia, audiences in Latvia seems more skeptical in their attitudes towards the media. Or the other thing, if we look at public media and trust and use of public media in either Latvia or Estonia, we see that in Estonia, public media is stronger. People consume all public media offerings more than it is in Latvia. In Latvia, we see that people embrace more with offerings of social media. So we could continue like this on many other aspects. How do you think? What are the reasons behind this?
It's really complicated question.
Again, another Pandora box question.
Definitely, we have here some path dependency, and it seems to me that sometimes some single events can be really relevant and influence the direction we will have on our media landscapes. I am constantly thinking, what would be the situation in Latvia when you would still have Diena as a quality newspaper? I'm not sure, but it seems to me that in this quickly changing world, sometimes single decisions can have a great impact. And maybe in Estonia, we had some luck with some decisions, but I don't know. So it's a really hard question for me.
Anda, do you have any thoughts on this?
Actually, I don't have new answers. I really support that path dependency approach, but still we should look structurally where Latvia is situated and how the closest neighbors influence our values, our development. If not go deeper to several decisions and important events, I would say that Estonia's situation with close relationship with Finland is one of the factors why Estonia is able to keep democracy values more strong and alive than those related with our eastern neighbors. Then that kind of development related with the authoritarian way of thinking with strong hierarchical relationships between institutions and society groups. This is one of my answers, but there are a lot of other issues as well.
Okay, I won't go further with this, and our time is running out. So to finish up our conversation, I would like to talk about the future of journalism. And you both work at universities as professors, and you work with new journalists and media professionals. So how do you see this journalism education sphere? Is it developing, and is there still demand for journalism studies, media studies? Because at least in Latvia, for past couple of years, we are fighting for students in this discipline. Yeah, how does it look from Estonian perspective? And yeah, how do you see new people who will join the journalist forces in next couple of years? Are they prepared for this new unstable situation in the work field, or this startup vibe? Do they have courage and skills to actually bring something new and fresh to media organizations?
Yes, I am really optimistic because I see so many motivated students, and of course we try to prepare them for this complicated profession, that they would be strong and have all the needed skills and competences. And we have journalism programs in 2 universities in Estonia, in Tartu and in Tallinn. So, and we still have candidates. It is really popular. So I am really optimistic, and I see that the future generation, they will find new ways how to make it, and probably will experiment more journalists currently are doing in Estonia. And it can happen that media organizations develop as well and provide new kind of support to their journalists, for example, some kind of psychological support and so on, because we see that in society there is a trend that we need to have more options to deal with stress and tensions in this profession. And I like very much our students. They are so good, so clever, and so well informed that I am, yes, optimistic that journalism in Estonia, at least in 10, 20 years, will have a future.
Thank you, Ragne. I would generally agree, and I would say that there are motivated, very talented journalists, but of course we notice, I heard actually from your other colleagues from Estonia that there is this trend, similar in Latvia, that there is gradually less interest about journalism studies than, for example, 10 years ago, when those numbers broke all kind of imagined records. But still, I think if you are not looking only from demand point of view, that this is good trend because you receive more motivated, more focused students, not just everyone who feel very stylish to become journalists. But of course, it's again a question on how to balance, how to actually provide high quality education for small, really highly motivated group of people. And I think for small countries, this is very essential task to develop their national journalism. And of course, it is related with changes in education structure, but this is normal process.
Yeah, I guess it's a good thing, right? We know that things are changing, and it's just the question how we adapt to these changes. And sometimes, whether we need to adapt to all changes, and what we do about these. So thank you very much, Anda and Ragne, that you had the time to spend and talk about these topics. Most probably we didn't answer to all the questions, and maybe some of your answers provoked further thinking about a couple of issues, and hopefully we will try to answer a couple of these questions in our next episodes. So I invite also you to listen to our next episodes, and maybe sometimes we will meet again and we will discuss further these questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
This podcast is recorded at Rīga Stradiņš University multimedia studio and is part of a research project making sense of media, a non-media-centric and open-ended approach to the study of media-related experiences and perceptions. It is funded by the RSU internal and external consolidation project.